Hello, good evening. Welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. Following a failure of smart motorway technology, we ask National Highways, are drivers safe without a hard shoulder?
Normally the system is 100% available.
Apart from when it's off.
Well, as I said, it's normally on all the time. There are certain times when there is planned upgrades, but those are absolutely the exception.
Campaigners say smart motorways should be scrapped. Also tonight, new schedules, same problems. On the eve of strike action on the rails, has an updated timetable eased passenger misery? The cold snap brings snow to parts of our region. Why some energy companies are paying customers to use less power. And Twinkle Twinkle on Twin Pike Way, we're live at York's most Christmassy cul-de-sac.
And we're in the middle of the coldest December since 2010. Just how long will the cold last? Join me for that week ahead forecast.
Thanks for your company this evening. Here's a question for you. Do you feel safe when you're driving on a smart motorway without a hard shoulder? Smart motorways have been controversial following deaths on the M1 in South Yorkshire. And in October, you may remember, a software failure meant that stranded vehicles were at risk of being driven into. Today, in an exclusive interview with Look North, National Highways, which manages England's major road network, has admitted there will be further outages, but insists smart motorways are safer than conventional ones. Here's our transport correspondent, Spencer Stokes.
Smart motorways, roads where the hard shoulder has been removed to create more capacity. Radar, electronic gantry signs and CCTV then added to improve safety. But on October the 26th, that safety net disappeared. A software failure saw staff lose control of the signals on smart motorways for nearly 4 hours. They couldn't close any lanes with the red X symbol. That put drivers who had to stop on the motorway at potential risk of being driven into. For the first time, National Highways have spoken about what happened.
So during that period, our ability to set red X's was switched off. That wasn't an ideal situation for us, but it was one we managed through other mitigating measures like extra traffic officer patrols on the network.
But it wasn't just switched off and then on again. It was off for nearly 4 hours. That's a long time for it to be down for.
Unfortunately, when we're bringing the system back up again, we experienced some unexpected faults, and that's why the 2 hours turned into more like 4 hours. We've launched an independent investigation to understand what happened, to ensure that we don't have the similar sort of system outages in the future.
The software outage led to outrage from Rotherham's MP Sarah Champion.
Motorists are 100% playing roulette with their lives every time they go on a smart motorway.
And dismay from Claire Mercer, who's campaigned for smart motorways to be scrapped after her husband died when he had to stop on one at Meadowhall in 2019.
National Highways keep peddling the all is well line because they can't afford not to, but it really isn't all is well and people are dying.
So how safe are smart motorways? Surveys show drivers feel less confident and dozens of people have been killed, but National Highways insist they're the safest roads in the country.
If I did experience a breakdown or had an accident, then I would be reassured on a smart motorway that a control room like the one we're sat in can look after me in that situation, and that's not true of other roads.
So can I just check, you would rather stop on a smart motorway than a traditional motorway
Yes.
if you're driving? I just find that surprising, that you'd rather not have a hard shoulder there as a refuge that is continuous all the way along.
So hard shoulders are not safe places. No part of a road is without risk. Tragically, 1 in 12 road deaths every year occurs on the hard shoulder. So my advice to anyone who becomes in trouble on any road is get yourself left, get as far left as you can. On a smart motorway, that will be an emergency area. They're painted orange. There are signs telling you where the nearest one is. And once you're in that emergency area, get out of your vehicle and over the hard shoulder and call for help.
The latest data shows that in 2020, conventional motorways with a hard shoulder carried 16% of all traffic and accounted for 4.5% of all fatalities. In comparison, smart motorways carried less traffic, just 3.3%, but were safer, accounting for 0.64% of fatalities. But the figures are disputed, with critics arguing the data needs to simply address whether the absence of a hard shoulder was a factor in a death or it wasn't a factor.
I think it's very difficult to ascertain the decision making of drivers when there is and isn't a hard shoulder as to whether what their behaviour would have been had that hard shoulder been there or not. What I feel personally is that smart motorways provide a level of assurance to me as a motorist that other roads don't.
That extra level of assurance is only there, though, when the technology works, and it will continue to be switched off for maintenance at quiet times. Motorists are not told when.
Normally the system is 100% available.
Apart from when it's off.
Well, as I said, it's normally on all the time. There are certain times when there is planned upgrades, but those are absolutely the exception.
But they still happen. It is still turned off at times when drivers are out on the road.
So I'm not wanting to give you the impression that we switch the system off for any other reasons than essential upgrades, and those are absolutely by exception rather than the norm.
Will there be any of those planned outages over the Christmas period into New Year?
So exactly when we might do some more further maintenance on the system, I couldn't say.
Smart motorways remain controversial. Safety data over a 5-year period is being measured before new ones are constructed. National highways say they are the safest type of road, but drivers remain unconvinced. Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North.
Spencer's here to talk a bit more about that. So, Spencer, you've been covering this story for many years. Remind us, there are 3 different types of motorways, aren't there?
Yeah, it can get confusing for drivers. So there are all lane running motorways like the M1 in South Yorkshire, where the hard shoulder has been permanently converted into a live running lane. Dynamic hard shoulder motorways like the M62 in West Yorkshire, where the hard shoulder opens for traffic at particularly congested times. And then we've got what are called controlled motorways. The M25 in London has sections like this, where there is a hard shoulder only to be used in emergencies, and it's got the overhead gantries with the software and the technology on them to enhance the safety of the motorway.
As we just heard, National Highways are adamant that smart motorways are safest, but campaigners don't agree with that.
They disagree. Yeah, National Highways are using data that shows smart motorways are safer. Campaigners say we need to look at data that shows what happens when vehicles have become stranded or stopped. Now, we have those figures here, and what you can see, this is looking at stopped vehicles, that 0.19 persons are killed or seriously injured on a smart motorway per 100 million vehicle miles, but that drops to 0.09 on a conventional motorway. So by these figures, conventional motorways with a hard shoulder are safer if you have to stop on one. National Highways are cautious about those figures because they say it's a small amount of data and therefore you can't read too much into it. The Rotherham MP, Sarah Champion, though, is very sceptical about what National Highways are saying.
The only conclusion I can draw is that National Highways are deliberately hiding behind very questionable data to justify the inexcusable, really, which is they're putting us on roads that are not safe because there isn't the hard shoulder in place. The fact that whenever we get the data and interrogate it, that holds up that there are things seriously wrong, particularly with all lane running. It just chills me, and we shouldn't be in this situation. I've literally just driven down from the constituency down to London, and most of the M1 now doesn't seem to have a hard shoulder. And it's only when you see that that you realise the scale of this rollout that's still going on.
And following on from what Sarah says there, if there is a Labour government elected, Labour promise to reverse all smart motorways and restore hard shoulders.
Spencer, thank you. We're going to stay with transport now. Dozens of rail services were cancelled or delayed in our region today, and that's despite the introduction of a new timetable which was intended to improve services after months of problems. It comes as passengers prepare for more misery on the rails, strike action, which is due to start tomorrow. Phil Bodmer is in York for us this evening. Phil, let's start by talking about the new timetable. Has it made any difference at all?
Well, I think, Amy, to be fair, it may be a new timetable, but it would appear it's the same old problems, as you mentioned there. Dozens and dozens of cancellations today, especially on TransPennine services. Some cancellations on Northern and delays and cancellations on LNER. Now, I caught a train from York to Leeds today. The first two I hoped to catch on TransPennine were cancelled. The third was running about 15 minutes later. We'll be talking to commuters today. We talked to one regular rail traveller, and he said he's not really confident that this more robust, renewed timetable will really make any difference.
It seems like there's sort of poor management in terms of the services, so many being cancelled, lots cancelled the night before so they get out of recording them in the stats, but also it's all resting on really poor infrastructure and sort of a decade of broken promises on rail upgrades and new lines.
Well, TransPennine Express says it has more drivers than it's ever had, in excess of 500, but he says due to high levels of sickness, maintaining the service is a bit of a challenge at the moment. But if there are disruptions to passengers, TPE will communicate those clearly and quickly to customers.
And Spencer, tomorrow it's not going to get any better. Days of disruption due to strikes. Sorry.
Indeed, yes, members of the RMT begin their 48-hour walkout, which, as you say, begins tomorrow and into Wednesday. Then there's 1 day reprieve, if you like, and then it happens again on Friday and Saturday. And in fact, this is the last normal day of working, really, until we get into the new year, Amy, because when there are non-strike days, the days in between are running a reduced service as we head towards the festive season. So the advice really is only travel if you absolutely have to. You can still purchase tickets online, Amy, but you do run the risk of your service not running. Although if you do miss a service and you have bought a ticket, the rail train operating companies say you will be entitled to a refund. But the advice tonight, if you're not home by a certain time, then please avoid trying to travel on trains tomorrow. Amy.
Thank you. And sorry for calling you Spencer. Of course you're Phil. Thank you. Postal workers, nurses and ambulance staff are also due to go on strike in the run-up to Christmas. Have you got any appointments that have been cancelled? Have you or your business been affected by the disruption on the rail or the postal services? Perhaps you're one of thousands of workers who are taking strike action. Get in touch with us via email, look.north@bbc.co.uk. You can see all our details there on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. It's been a bit chilly out there, hasn't it, the last few days? Temperatures have been below freezing for much of today, and parts of our region have seen travel disruption due to some of this. We've had snow. This was the scene in Wath-upon-Dearne and Sheffield earlier today. The cold weather has increased pressure on Britain's energy supplies as well. At one point, Drax Power Station was on standby to fire up its old coal furnace to generate electricity, and some households are even being offered money to turn off their appliances. Paul's here. Paul, what is causing such a strain? It's not the first time we've had weather like this.
Well, but this is a nightmare situation for the National Grid. This is what they feared. Very cold conditions, which has gone hand in hand with little if no wind. None of the wind farms across the UK are producing any electricity. So as you've just said, yesterday National Grid asked Drax to fire up 2 of coal-fired power stations out of the 6 that they've got there. This morning, things eased a little bit and Drax were stood down. But this is what Drax told me earlier today.
National Grid have got contracts with all 3 last coal-fired power stations in the country, and it is very much a last resort. The market mechanisms will ensure that there are adequate supplies in all but the most extreme circumstances. And I think that's what we've seen today, where the market's responded and others are able to produce that power.
So the main reason why Drax have been stood down from creating coal-fired electricity is down to the fact that the French have come right into our rescue. They've got more nuclear power available, so we're importing electricity from France, and the Norwegians are giving us some hydroelectricity through a cable underneath the sea, and that's why it looks like we were going to avoid blackouts this evening.
We talked before about people being paid to switch off their electricity between certain points this evening. Tell us more about that.
That's right. It's right now. It's between 5 and 7 o'clock this evening.
Let's hope they're still tuned in.
Don't be turning your television off just yet. But Octopus Energy, one of the suppliers, have asked customers to cut down on power. And it just shows how desperate they are and how expensive wholesale electricity is right now, that they are offering £2.25 for every kilowatt hour that customers can cut down on. So, very tight situation until Lungenhall finishes at 7 o'clock.
It's a real incentive there, isn't it, monetary-wise, especially with bills being so high at the moment. How long is this going to go on for?
Well, I think the power situation will ease because we're expecting the wind to start blowing from Tuesday night right through the rest of the week. So I don't think we'll get any more crunches this week, but it remains very cold until the weekend, and by that time there could be some snow.
Paul, thank you. Well, one place they don't want to hear about the cold is Stannington in Sheffield. Spare a thought for around 200 people who faced an 11th day without central heating after a burst water main flooded a gas main. The gas firm Cadent had hoped that everyone would be reconnected by the end of today, as Tom Ingle reports.
Finally, cooking on gas. Hot breakfasts and hot water to wash up afterwards is the order of the day at the village store in Stannington. But that's where the unconfined thermostat joy ends for the owner. He's still disconnected at home.
It's affected us badly now. We can't function. We have work to do at home. You can't sit down at a computer. We can't get out the Christmas tree because it's just so cold. You can't understand how cold it is. It's -7.5 this morning.
Some are luckier, if you can call waiting 10 days to warm up lucky.
Just managed to get back on approximately 3 hours ago, so great news.
What was your first priority?
First priority, getting the heating on for my parents who are in their 80s. They were over the moon, actually, rubbing their hands.
Still, the work goes on. There are trucks and tradesmen everywhere, fighting to get every last drop of water from the burst main out of the gas pipes. Today's pub quiz question: when will they be finished?
Yesterday we got more than 500 back on. We have a few more hundred people to go. We will get round to everybody hopefully by the end of today. One of the big challenges is actually the terrain around here, so we're seeing pockets of water appear. So, people are being put back on gas and then going off again. It only takes a very small amount of water to actually stop somebody's gas flowing. But we're getting back out to those people and making sure we take the water out and get them back on.
Back at the shop, the customers' over-the-counter conversations all seem to start, "Are you on?" Cadent promise they won't stop until everyone can answer with a warming yes. Tom Ingle, BBC Look North, Stannington.
Let's bring you some news in brief now. The government has confirmed how new funding for motor neuron disease research will be spent. It follows pressure from several campaigners, including former Leeds Rhino stars Rob Burrow and Kevin Sinfield. The money was promised over a year ago. The Health Secretary says £30 million is ready to be handed over to specialist research centres. The remaining £20 million will be fast-tracked. Next tonight, think charity shop, and your local high street probably springs to mind, but maybe not one of Yorkshire's glitziest shopping centres. But for 1 week only, the Victoria Quarter in Leeds is helping to raise money for Holbeck Together. It's a charity that really took off during the pandemic. With the cost of living crisis now, it's needed more than ever. Kathy Killick reports.
For high-end Christmas shopping, it doesn't get much swankier than Victoria Gate in Leeds. But nestled among the designer shops is a store with a difference. It wasn't here at 7 o'clock this morning, but with help from volunteers and Leeds Building Society paying the rent. Welcome to Holbeck Together's charity shop.
I suppose there was an element of anxiety to it when we said yes. However, being here today and the response we've had from the public is incredible. They've said, "Is this a new designer shop that's opened up?" Well, actually, yes, it is, but it's a charity shop and it's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Bye.
It's better than I think any of us could have hoped, and it's so professional, and I think it looks brilliant, don't you? I mean, it's fantastic to see so many people here and to be a part of the community as well.
Sprinkled among the normal second-hand items are clothes donated by Netflix from one of its shows, and some stores have given excess stock. All the proceeds will go to support people in need in Holbeck. It's not nearly so glamorous, but the charity's social supermarket is a lifesaver for many. The charity also runs parent support groups and meals and chat for the elderly. It's a true community hub.
And I come every day, and they've done all sorts for us. We have entertainment, exercise, they do to take us on trips and everything, you know. If it hadn't been for this lot here, I don't know what would have happened to me. I'd have been in house, I want to come out. You know, it's been really good for me.
All but together also do trips out in the holidays that are funded, pumpkin carving. We've had parties, Christmas parties, tie-dyeing, lots of things. If someone's really struggling, they can come down and they can help them out, you know, with free food, or they can, you know, send them somewhere and get some help and things like that.
Roy, these are going on the delivery today.
Christmas care parcels are also spreading some seasonal cheer. And while there seems to be a gulf between these two very different parts of the one city, the shop's a way of bringing them together so everyone wins. Kathy Killick, BBC Look North, Leeds.
Looks great, doesn't it? Let's bring you some sports news now. Leeds boxer Josh Warrington is considering his future, having lost his IBF featherweight title on Saturday night. The challenger Luis Alberto Lopez won by a majority decision after a very close and very tough fight. It's just the second loss in Warrington's career, but at 32, you got to wonder if he wants to work his way back up to the top again. The cold weather saw a few football matches called off at the weekend. Of those that did go ahead, just 2 wins for our teams. Sheffield United picked up where they left off in the Championship. They beat Huddersfield Town in the Yorkshire Derby by 1-0. Captain Billy Sharp chipping the town keeper. And Doncaster Rovers are 2 points off the League Two playoff spots after a 1-0 win at Newport. Carl Noyle with the all-important goal. Now, most towns and cities in our region have officially turned on their Christmas lights for the festive season. Well, one street in York has been organising their very own light switch on for more than 20 years now, raising thousands of pounds for charity. Last night, they too started twinkling once again. Beth Parsons is there for us tonight. Is it feeling very festive? You look festive, Beth.
I feel festive, actually, Amy. It might be cold, but there's a lot of festive warmth going on. Now, for most of the year, this street in Wigginton is known as Twin Pike Way, but for the festive season, it turns into Twinkle Pike Way. It has raised £92,000 for charity since the year 2000 when it first started. It's back for its 22nd year. And before we hear from the residents, have a listen to some of these people that have been visiting the lights this evening.
It looks really good. And people put up a lot of effort for it.
Really nice and it's beautiful here.
My favourite was the thing behind us. Because people have so much talent.
It's absolutely brilliant. Get your kids along here. It's absolutely amazing.
So 7 houses are lit up brightly, and I'm joined by some of the residents here today. Hello, Ken. Are you well? Your house is looking gorgeous.
Thank you very much indeed.
Tell me about what it takes to do something like decorate your house. Is it easier to put it up or take it down?
Yeah, I'm going to take a bit more care taking it down this year because it takes me as long to unravel all the wiring as it does to put it up. So we're taking a bit more care, and then it might take me a bit shorter than 2 days.
Have you got a particular favourite thing about your decorations? I've been to see it, it's pretty stunning.
I just like the characters outside and the kiddies when they come down, the snowman, the penguin, Father Christmas, you know, the noise that the kids make is wonderful.
Yeah, we heard some of them earlier as well, yeah. Now, I'm also joined by Alan. This is your house behind us. Yeah. Tell us about the charity aspect. Who is it that you're raising money for? And £92,000, that's incredible.
Yeah, we've this year we're doing, well, like we always do, with St Leonard's Hospice and the Yorkshire Air Ambulance, the 2 main charities, the local charities that we...
And I know that it's every donation counts, small or large. We can't talk about the fact that we've got these huge electric, beautiful displays on this year as well. You've made a slight change. I know you've had to withdraw the time that they're on so that people's energy bills are kept a little bit lower.
We've reduced the hours till, well, we're now 4 till 8.
And anyone could come along and join in. It's just a couple of minutes drive off the York Outer Ring Road on the north, so feel free to come and have a look. It's on till the 27th of December. This is Beth Parsons, BBC Look North on Twinkle Pike Way, York.
You don't get to say that every day, do you, Beth? I'm there. It looks fabulous. I love that polar bear. And obviously any excuse to get another of Paul's headbands out. Listen.
Yeah, you wore that last week, didn't you?
Not this one. I have a whole variety, or you do, I should say.
Right. So let's have a look, shall we, at a few pictures that you sent in, and it sort of explains the weather beautifully, because that's Wensleydale, and you can see some parts are in sun. You can see that thick fog extending up the sides of the valley, and a widespread frost. Temperatures in that part of the world last night went down to nearly -10. So it does make it the coldest December since 2010. That's, of course, 12 years ago. The second picture is at Sheffield. I mean, that's a fabulous picture there. Lucky you in Sheffield getting snow. It was very localised this weekend, just parts of Sheffield into Wath, over towards the Peak District. Obviously thick enough there in Sheffield to sledge. Not much elsewhere. And this was finally with the sun trying to beat back the freezing fog, should I say, but that freezing fog's been a real issue across some parts of the region. Now, there's the addresses on the screen if you want to send pictures in. Let's have a look at the headline then for the next 24 hours, because it remains very cold indeed right across Yorkshire. Temperatures at none of our stations have risen above freezing this afternoon. Tomorrow looks very cloud, freezing fog, low cloud. Just a hint that drier air will act to break the cloud up. It might brighten up a little bit, but the jet stream's still to the south of us. A big change coming Wednesday through to Friday to a northerly. That means much cleaner air, lots more sunshine, a few wintry showers towards the coast, but it will remain very cold, and the wind picks up, so that's good news for the wind turbines for electricity. Now, there's a satellite picture. It's a mixed picture: freezing fog, low cloud, one or two snow flurries, perhaps overnight, giving a slight dusting, some clearer gaps elsewhere. Probably not quite as cold as last night, but we're still looking countryside areas down to -4, -5. Elsewhere, towns and cities -2 or -3. Tomorrow's high water times in Scarborough at 7:10, Bridlington at 7:25. So a grey start with freezing fog patches, the odd flake of snow, but I think gradually things will improve. We'll see brightness developing across eastern and later southern areas. It may be quite a while before it brightens up, if at all, across areas to the west. Temperatures really struggling again, around 1 Celsius, that's just 34 Fahrenheit. The further outlook, very interesting. It stays cold all week, lots more in the way of sunshine, and then eventually the milder air gets in Sunday into Monday. As it does so, there could be some snow. That's the forecast.
I hope so. Just a little flutter would be nice, wouldn't it, to get us in the festive spirit?
I think so, yes.
What do you think tomorrow? Christmas tree or reindeer antlers? Your choice.
Neither.
Let's
maintain some dignity.
Oh, no, let's not. That's it from us. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.